Hey, you're listening to a mainstream podcast from the high school ministry, Xstream. We hope you enjoy.
Man, I am so excited to be with you guys. This is an honor. It's a first for me, actually. I've been here for a long time, and it's a first for me to be on the stage on a Wednesday night and have the honor and privilege to be just to share my heart. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jess. It's just Jess. I like Jess. I don't like Jessica. I definitely don't like Pastor Jess, because then it makes you think you have to talk to me like superior. And but I'm just Jess. And so I feel like I have to share, I gotta out myself. I gotta tell you guys something about me so we can, feel a little bit more comfortable. So I'm gonna let you guys know something that I do that is just absolutely ridiculous, and that is that I am a gym hopper, okay? I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I hop from gym to gym to gym. I've been at Planet, I've been at Crunch, I've been at LA Fitness before it was a Sporta. I've been at some bougie gyms, probably 2 or 3 that I'm so regret paying the amount of money I did pay. I won't let you guys know that. But recently, one of the gyms that I just so chose to be a part of for about 3 months was a boxing gym. And so I like to think that I'm a little bit of an amateur boxer, to the point that I'm gonna have my friend Natalie, where you at, girl? She's gonna come up here real quick, and Natalie is not my personal trainer, so if I'm embarrassed up here, I'm embarrassed, not Natalie. Natalie's she's the GOAT. But here's the thing about boxing, okay? Again, I'm an amateur, so is there anyone here that's a legit boxer? You train? Jesse. I don't know that Jesse's in here, but some of you guys, I see a lot of hands. I don't really believe you, but here's the thing about boxing, okay? There's a little bit of a rhythm you gotta have. It's called the boxer's stance. I don't have rhythm, which is what made me give up boxing. I do it in my garage now. I also have a gym in my garage, but again, I'm a hopper. So Natalie's just gonna if you've ever boxed, what happens is there's a few different punches and jabs you can throw, and they all have numbers, okay? And so Natalie's gonna just throw numbers at me, and I'm gonna punch her, but not her, but the mitts. So we're gonna do a little bit of mitt work real quick, and we're gonna see what happens. Sound good? All right, go ahead, Natalie, let's see this.
1, 2, 3. Again. 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 1, 2, under 2. 1, 2, under 2. Again. Again. One more time.
Oh, let's go. I'm a little bit of an amateur. All right, give it up for Natalie. So let me tell you what happens when you put those gloves on. There's something that comes upon you. You feel like you can really take someone out. It makes you feel like you're ready to go. But here's the thing about Natalie. Natalie, if you could hear her, I don't know if you could, but she's yelling numbers, and every time she goes, 1, 2, 3, again. 1, 2, under 2, again. And when you hear the word again when training, it makes you feel like every time you can do it harder, you can do it faster, you could do it stronger, and you get better and better and better learning certain techniques to take your opponent out. And tonight, XR, I want to talk about, I'm catching my breath, I kind of went a little bit too hard right there. I want to talk about just do it again. Just do it again. And when you hear the word again, you should feel like, no, I can show up, I can do that. You know why? Because God does it every single day. God shows up for you, for me, for your loved one, for the ones who don't even know Christ. And he does it every day. He does it again and again and again. He's healer. He's faithful. He loves. He cares. He brings joy. He brings patience. He brings kindness. God shows up every day for us, and he does it again and again and again. And some of you guys in this room tonight, you're not really tracking with me. And you know why? Because you have not given God the opportunity to do it again in your life. And the reason for that is because you have not put forth the effort to do it again yourself. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. Let's pray really quick, and we're going to dive into this word. Jesus, we thank you. We honor you. We just ask you right now to come into this place. We ask you to show up, my God, and I pray right now that my words are not my own. They are only your words. Let it be exactly what you would want tonight. We trust you, we praise you, and we thank you. Amen. You see, God did it in the Old Testament where he parted the Red Sea, and then years later he parted the Jordan. Jesus did it in the New Testament when one day he was healing a blind man and then raising the dead. He turned water into wine, and then he fed the 5,000. Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, they do it again and again for us. And so the first thing that you need to do to just do it again is you have to have discipline. Discipline's important because in order to be disciplined as a Christian, there's some things that we need to do. In fact, I have a friend who is training for the Major League Baseball, like MLB. He wants to be in the MLB one day. And so I asked him, I said, hey, as you're training, as you're preparing, he's in college, and I was like, what are some things as an athlete that is expected of you? What are some of the disciplines you have to have? He said, well, just first off, my diet, right? His diet, he's like, I have to eat certain things. If some of you guys actually do work out and you're in sports, you know that there's certain things you should or shouldn't eat. Some of you guys can eat. Some guys in here probably can eat like 5,000 calories a day and just bulk up, and it's like crazy. If I ate 5,000 calories a day, I think I would just explode because I don't know if that would be impossible for me. But his diet is super important. His intake, the things that he would allow into his body would matter when it comes to training for the major leagues. The second thing that really mattered would be his workout. Where he goes, how he does it, the weights he lifts, how he lifts them, the drills he would run, going to the gym, running certain distances and whatever those would be for a Major League Baseball player. And then the third thing he told me is studying. And I was like, what, you study for like baseball? He's like, yeah. He's like, I need to study plays. I need to study the other teams, the opponents, study even like equipment, new technologies that would come out to protect like baseball players. I played t-ball as a kid, and like, I had a hat or a helmet. I played baseball, I promise. A helmet. But now they have like the chin guards and the arm guards and the leg guards and all these guards. I'm like, you're not the catcher, you're just hitting a ball. He's like, yeah, you have to study and you want to know what the newest things are that are out there. It's important to continue to understand what's out there. And just like an athlete, as Christians, we also have to know our diet, our workout plan, and also what we need to know what we're studying. 1 Corinthians 9:24 says this, Do you not know that in a race all runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the game goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave so after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified from the prize. 1 Corinthians saying that as Christians, there are some strict trainings and things that would be asked of us to continue on running our race, choosing to show up and just do it again and again and again. And just like an athlete, our diet, it might not necessarily worry about the physical, but we need to know what we're consuming mentally, what we're consuming spiritually, the things that you look at on your phone. Some of you guys know there's websites you shouldn't be going on, those things that you consume, social media, mass media, you name it, the music you listen to, these are things that affect your spiritual diet. And it's important that you would understand that you would have to begin just like somebody training for the major leagues. As Christians, we are also training so that we are not disqualified from the prize. As Christians, we also have to work out. You show up to church. We got a basketball court, and it like really works you out. But also You have to show up. You got to be here. Like this right here on a Wednesday night. On a Sunday morning, we got a mainstream section over there. Come hang out with us. There's like a bunch of us that sit there. It's important and crucial that as Christians, church and fellowship and fine arts and small groups, you name it, those are part of our discipleship plan. And if you have discipline in showing up and going to church, I promise you it's going to make the race that you run as a Christian easier. And then the third thing, studying, that's a little bit more self-explanatory, right? As Christians, we have to pray and we have to read our word. It's pretty simple. And if you could understand that being disciplined in those areas of your life, when things are thrown at you, whether they're controllable circumstances or uncontrollable circumstances, because you've had discipline in your walk with Christ, you're praying, you're reading your word, coming to church, and watching what you consume, you're gonna be able to be equipped and ready to go into the next and go into a situation that maybe you don't know how to handle because you have equipped yourself in that way. Point number 2 is grit. In order to just do it again, you have to have grit. And let me explain to you what grit is. Grit has to do a lot with self-control, okay? Grit is about understanding the long-term goal, having self-control to not let short-term gratification take over the overall goal. So basically, what you want right now cannot determine what you actually need in the future. Like you might want to buy like $300 Jordans, but you also know that in the future you got to pay for fine arts, right? And that's just a simple like illustration there. But if you can control and have the grit, that like the self-control to not do certain things now that will better you for your future, it's gonna determine where you end up on that race of getting the prize. Sometimes we allow certain distractions into our lives, things that I would call them controllables. The reason I would call them controllables are because we can control some of these things, such as comparing ourselves to others, the anger that we'd feel, the jealousy we'd feel, the bitterness, pride. These are things that you can control. Can you control the thing that happened to you that made you feel that way? No, but you can control your feelings. And it's important that you understand that there's a grit, there's a self-control that you can have to learn how to handle certain anger, certain bitterness, frustrations. You see, social media, friends, family, even ourselves, we tell ourselves all the time that if I can just have it right now, why not? Why not just, if it's there and it's available, why not just do it? Instead of taking a moment and going before the Lord and saying, hey, is this what you'd have for me? Is this the school you have for me? Is this the relationship you'd have for me? Should I be listening to this? Should I be watching that? So let me ask you, what's your perspective? What are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the jealousy, the bitterness, those things that you probably can control? Are you focusing on the prize as a Christian, running the race, being disciplined enough to know, hey, this is where I'm going. This is what God has. You see, when runners get ready to run a race, if you've ever seen a track, which I'm sure most of you have, they might even put a picture on the screen in a second. This is what happens, right? It's a big circle, and it's like a diagonal line of runners. And so it looks like someone's actually in first already. They're like, I'm here, then someone's there, whatever. And if I, as a runner, was going to focus on where everyone else was on that track, how much more would it distract me during my race? It's important about where you start, but not about who's starting around you. Sydney McLaughlin, she's an Olympic gold medalist. She said this right before she coming into a race. She said, the biggest lesson the sport has ever taught me at this moment in life is really to just focus on your lane. Everybody's journey in the sport looks different. Nothing is ever guaranteed from year to year. So take the opportunity that you have in front of you and not look around at what everyone else is doing. It's so much easier said than done, but truly for me, focusing on my lane, the 10 hurdles that are in front of me, whatever that looks like, whatever capacity, truly does make a difference instead of running someone else's race. Galatians 5:7 says this, you are running the race so well, Who has held you back from following the truth? Another translation says, who cut in on you? It certainly isn't God, for he is the one who's calling you to freedom. What's controlling you tonight? That reality you should be controlling. Several years ago, I was starting college. Promise I'm older than I look. Started college in 2010. And in 2000, I know some of you are like, doing the math. Some of you are like 11, like you were born in 2010. I started college in 2010. And for me, school, it was just school. My sister, my brother were like super smart. And I kind of think the reason for it is because when I was in the 4th grade, my grandmother passed away. And my grandmother, up until the 4th grade, I'd come home every day to my grandparents' house, and my grandma would tutor me. She'd be like, how do you spell this word? Let's read together. Let's do this. And in that moment, as a 4th grader, I didn't really know the difference, but going and kind of looking back on my life, I realized throughout middle school and high school, school just wasn't it for me. I didn't really have the eagerness to learn because the one person who kind of helped me learn no longer was with me. And so once I approached college, I started going to college. I was, an average student. It took me 3 years to get my AA, and that's just because I failed, because I just didn't really care. I figured, you know what, I'll take the class again. And also, too, fortunate enough, my financial situation allowed me to kind of have to pay for a class again. No big deal. And it wasn't until my junior year of college, I did the direct connect to Valencia. And so I'd taken to UCF, so 3 years at Valencia, and then went to UCF. I was majoring in business, and I spent a year at UCF, and I failed 8 out of my 10 classes. If anyone's been trying to apply to UCF, trust me, it's hard, and once that happens, they kick you out. So I got kicked out of college, and I was like, what in the world am I gonna do? So what I ended up deciding to do is I applied for Florida International University online. I didn't tell my parents. I simply just said, hey, I'm gonna go to online school. And they kind of took that as an answer. I don't recommend you guys doing that. And so by the end of my junior year, I did online school with FIU. And at this point, I've been in college for 5 years. Unfortunately, that summer, my dad got really sick. And I knew that I owed it to him, because I had been lying to him for a year about not just where I was going to college, but how I ended up having to switch schools. That summer, my dad passed away. And similar to the situation when I was in 4th grade when my grandma passed, this time it was different. There was grit that I had that I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna let this circumstance control the outcome of my future. In fact, I'm gonna take control. And I dedicated that last year of college to my dad, and I passed with all A's. I'm a little bit smarter than I think. Some of you tonight are in a situation where you think you're not in control, but if you take a step back and you realize that frustration, the anger, the bitterness, you can have a little bit of grit and you can just do it again. Because when you have grit and there's certain things that you can control, there's some other situations that come along in life that you can't control. And that takes perseverance. You have to know how to be disciplined in your walk with Christ so that when there's situations that come along and you have to have the grit to just kind of get through and choose to be a better person, that then you can have the perseverance to get through the uncontrollable situations. I learned a lot of perseverance the year my dad passed away. You see, these uncontrollable situations could be maybe you're sick in body tonight. Maybe you have a loved one that's sick. Maybe it's finances at home. Things aren't good. It could be a car situation. And the list could go on, but I know I was talking about Sydney McLaughlin a minute ago, and the thing about Sydney is that she was a track Olympian, but she didn't just run track, she ran hurdles. And if you have ever watched hurdling or whatever you want to call it, there's about 10 hurdles on a track, depending on how many meters and blah, blah, blah. The thing about hurdling is this, is when you choose to run hurdling, I'm just gonna call it that, you begin to study again the technique of what it is to be a hurdler. And here's what it is about those who run this. They have to learn it. Learning the technique is so important, but it's good for nothing if you cannot run full speed ahead over the hurdles within rhythm. Just like us running the race, there's things that get in the way like a hurdle, and we need to learn how to be able to overcome them almost seamlessly. Hurdlers train themselves to know how many strides and steps are between each hurdle, so they're not focused on the hurdle, but they're focused on the end, the finish line. And they count every stride and every jump. For male athletes, it's usually 13 to 15 steps. For women athletes, it's usually 15 to 17 steps. But they have to be so disciplined and so focused on the race that they're running to focus on the finish line and not what could distract them and get in their way right in front of them. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off everything that weighs us and slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith." Philippians 3:13 says, "But I press on to possess the perfection for which Christ Jesus first possessed for me. No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it, but I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past, looking forward to what lies ahead. I press on, I reach the end of the race, receiving heavenly prize for which God, through Jesus Christ, is calling us to." XR tonight, if you can understand what it is to have the discipline of a Christian prayer life, showing up and just doing that and having the grit to kind of control some of those things that you should have self-control in, and you can persevere through some of those uncontrollables, you're gonna get somewhere. And if you're in this room and you're like, "Jess, I don't think I can," if you would just do it again one more time, I promise God's gonna show up. I wanna show you this video in just a second. And I want you to imagine as you watch it, it's Rocky, okay? So Rocky is talking to his son. And I think there's some people in this room tonight that could probably see themselves as Rocky's son in the way that Rocky's son talks to Rocky. And so some of you guys are gonna place yourself in your head as Rocky's son. But I then want you to listen to the response of Rocky. You can go ahead and play the video.
You know, living with you, it hasn't been easy. People see me, but they think of you. Now with all this going on, this is gonna be worse than ever.
It don't have to be.
No, sure it does.
Why? You got a lot going on, kid.
Oh, what, my last name? That's the reason I got a decent job. That's the reason why people deal with me in the first place. Now I start to get a little ahead. I start to get a little something for myself, and this happens. Now I'm asking you as a favor, not to go through with this, okay? This is only gonna end up bad for you, and it's gonna end up bad for me.
You think I'm hurting you?
Yeah, in a way you are.
It's the last thing I ever wanted to do.
I know that's not what you want to do, but that's just the way that it is. Don't you care what people think? Doesn't it bother you that people are making you out to be a joke, and that I'm gonna be included in that? Do you think that's right? Do you?
You ain't gonna believe this, but you used to fit right here. I'd hold you up and say to your mother, "This kid's gonna be the best kid in the world. This kid's gonna be somebody better than anybody ever knew." And you grew up good and wonderful. It was great just watching you. Every day was like a privilege. Then the time come for you to be your own man and take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. I'm always gonna love you no matter what. No matter what happens. You're my son, you're my blood. You're the best thing in my life. But until you start believing in yourself, you ain't gonna have a life. Don't forget to visit your mother.
When I was in middle school, I found myself, I feel like a little frustrated with God. I found myself super just discouraged. And the reason for it was because when I was 11 years old, I was diagnosed with a blood disorder that basically kept me from doing everything and anything I enjoyed doing. As a sixth grader, to be told you can't participate in PE class, it's pretty devastating. I couldn't skateboard, I couldn't be on the swim team. And I would ask God, I'd be like, God, why me? My brother, he likes to act and sing. He doesn't like to play sports. My sister, she's a writer, so why couldn't it have been her? Because I'm the one sibling who likes to be active and do crazy things. And the blood disorder basically kept me from doing all of the things that I enjoyed. Basically, if I got hit hard enough, I could bleed internally and die. And so as a middle schooler, you hear something like that and you don't quite get it. And so throughout my high school career, there was this built up frustration and anger and not getting again to do a lot of the things that I enjoyed doing. And it was probably my junior year of high school where I went to camp. And I remember being at the altar. It's not a camp push, but maybe it'll convince you to go. And I remember being on the floor on the left side of the gym, bawling my eyes out. And as a kid, I had to wear a medical bracelet. Some of you guys are really resonating with me right now. Some of you guys have something that you've been diagnosed with and you hate it. I get it. I had this medical bracelet on, and honestly, I'm dramatic, so I'm sitting there and I'm crying, and I'm like, God, why me? And in the most stillest, most peaceful moment, I felt the Lord come upon me and say, but I'm healer. And if you could understand tonight that he's healer, he provides joy, he provides peace, even in a situation that doesn't deserve it or feel like it, and everyone around you doesn't have peace or joy or healing. And so as a junior in high school, I said, okay, if you're a healer, then I'm gonna trust that. And I laid on the floor, my hands were above my head, and I played with my bracelet for about 5 minutes till then it fell off me. I felt like the genie from Aladdin. You probably don't know that, I don't know, you probably haven't watched Aladdin, the end when he gets free. I felt so much freedom. And I went home and I went to the doctors, and the doctors are still like, no, you still have it. But I walked around with the confidence knowing, but I serve a God that's healer. So at the end of the day, even when things get hard, and I can't control my blood disorder, but I can control how to respond, then I'm just gonna respond with peace, and I'm just gonna skateboard anyways, and if I get hurt, I serve a healer. Rapids and Xstream tonight, some of you are in this place and you feel so helpless. You don't want to do it again and you don't want to keep going, but I promise you, if tonight you would just do it again, God's going to do it again and again and again for whatever the situation you are in. So tonight's altar is pretty simple. I talked about discipline, I talked about grit, and I talked about perseverance. And if you find yourself of someone who has grit or perseverance, then I think that it is up to you to come to this altar and just find yourself there, because you don't need a leader. You don't need someone to come pray for you. You just have to find the grit to be like, you know what, God, I might not know the answers. I might not have you might not be able to control certain things, but you can control how you respond tonight. And you might not be able to control how God responds tonight, but I promise you, he's gonna respond. So honestly, if you guys could just stand with me. I'm not gonna ask you to bow your heads or close your eyes, but the band's gonna go back into worship in just a moment. So if you want and you find yourself right now, you're standing in this place and you know you need the grit, you need to persevere, whatever the situation is, you can just start making your way forward. And like I said, if you just do it again, he will too.
Thank you for listening to a Mainstream Orlando podcast. We hope you join us again soon.